Welcome back to the Best Damn Nerd Show. James Kincaid alongside Professor Chris Davis. And as we've been doing every week here on the Best Damn Nerd Show, we've been following along with the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe on the small screen, Disney Plus stuff that they've been shelling out, whatever.
Slapping out there?
Whatever, yeah, just pumping out there for the droids out there to say it's the best thing since the last thing, and we'll talk more about that later. But we have been following along with Marvel's What If series, and they released their 4th episode. And quick, I guess before we get into this week's episode, Davis, of the What If offering so far, I guess what has been your overall take on the series and your sort of favorite, least favorite episode?
Overall, it's been fairly mediocre and uninspiring. I've had fun watching it from time to time, but it's left a lot to be desired on just not enough creativity for a what if type scenario. I would just want more. From a favorite episode standpoint, was probably my third. The third episode had been my favorite up until this point, followed by the Captain America, and lastly, sadly, the Chadwick Boseman.
T'Challa, if T'Challa was Star-Lord. And
yeah. I mean, it was
Thanos out of destroying, half the universe.
That one was rough. So, had a better what if moment, but than the Peggy Carter one, but Peggy Carter was better.
So that brings us to episode 4 of What If. And I just want to say, off the bat, there will be spoilers and everything just like usual. But right from the title, this is the best episode of What If that they've done so far. They've gotten everything better in this episode from top to bottom. It is what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. And that's just... I like the creativity of the title. I like the concept going into this already. This overall left me feeling like, oh, this is a what if comic that I would read. This is something that I can really sort of get where they're going with this. The story they were trying to tell was interesting. This was vastly better than anything else that they've released so far. It's not perfect. I still have my sort of same issues that the other ones have at certain points and everything. But this is probably the best single episode of any MCU content on Disney Plus, is this What If episode right here. It's the Doctor Strange episode of What If.
Well, you know why? It's the Time Machine movie.
I'm glad you brought that up.
All it is the Time Machine with Doctor Strange. It's the same story.
You know what? Maybe I underrated that Guy Pearce classic.
Yeah, you did. And you just said how much you loved it.
Well, in comparison to everything else, context is king. I know a lot of people like Danielle Pineda like to say that context doesn't matter, when you're trying to fan blame and stuff like that. But in the context of everything else, this is the best MCU related episode to come to Disney Plus. And I did have a similar reaction when in the episode, Rachel McAdams, Christine, right? Mm-hmm. She dies and he wants to save her, and I knew I was like, dude, they're gonna do a time machine here. They're gonna be doing a Guy Pearce. She's gonna keep dying in all these different ways, and they didn't disappoint. And yes, in the confines of this show, that concept was working. And Doctor Strange goes down this rabbit hole of because he has to watch her die over and over again. This episode connected emotionally a lot more than any of the other ones did. The irony that this one had more heart when it's about Doctor Strange losing his heart is just... Stop it, Dave. Stop it.
I'm gonna get all of you guys to love that movie.
You know what? Maybe we'll bring Adam Zika back and we'll do a movie night on it. Maybe. I might be down after this. And in fact, maybe that'll be our series wrap party on What If, is we'll do Time Machine.
I was just waiting for the final battle for him to just pull him in and just say what if. I wanted it so bad.
You're forgetting one question. What if? It is, I mean, it's hilarious that we already have this very Time Machine movie lifted type storyline here. And yes, it worked well. But what was your overall thoughts on this episode, other than the obvious Time Machine movie comparisons?
No, I mean, emotionally, I think a lot of people could relate to wanting to change that type of moment in their life if something like that happened, and going over and over and trying to fix it. And it's very gut-wrenching to watch somebody go through that. And I think knowing Doctor Strange character's background and knowing how pompous he is, and just watching him break down more and more as he's realizing that nothing he can do is going to change this. It's brutal, and it's dark. I think, and I love how it changed him to, and then when the Great One splits him in half, that half of him is searching for all this power to save her and is taking out all these monsters. That was a really cool scene of like how he's absorbing all this power from different creatures, from other worlds and other universes. That was fascinating. That was really cool.
Yeah.
But then knowing that he was split, and that battle was going to take place. That was a good concept. I would have liked, I think, though, if I have one critique, because this was the best episode so far, I do agree with that by far, is that I would like more reasoning behind why these moments can't change. Like, if somebody could come up with something that just nobody in any of these types of stories has really had the lore to explain why it just can't happen. And
no one's played more fast and loose with time travel rules than Marvel.
Right.
They change them at the whim to suit whatever story that they're telling at the time.
And so they create these pretty much plot hole devices that cover those to the best of their ability, but without explaining them. And they just say, oh, that's why. And that's what most time travel movies do, and with this type of circumstance, with Time Machine as well. And it's I would just like to know more about that, because I love time travel stuff.
Sure. You should watch, if you haven't seen the movie Primer, watch the movie Primer.
I have. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I need that's due for, we watched the crap out of that movie when it first came out, but I haven't seen it in years. But I think the issue that Marvel runs into is that, yes, a lot of time travel sort of movies, concepts, they set the ground rules and maybe they don't explain them to the depth of your liking, but at least most of them hold to the rules.
Yes.
Marvel is sort of now, start with Endgame and Loki and Doctor Strange and all that. They don't really hold to their own rules necessarily. So I think that's the issue where you run into. But yes, the absolute time, like Christine's death, is an absolute time point, and they do nothing to explain why that is. And it is sort of, it's an interesting concept considering we're watching a show about infinite possibilities. So
right.
That's was an interesting sort of explanation that they did not dive into whatsoever.
And it was questionable too, with the description of it's like, if you don't go down this path, then you don't save the universe. But he still wouldn't. Like, in all the other, I don't know. There are so many things that came up with that. It was like, it didn't make sense, but they said it and thought it did. it was like the universe is still going to end many different ways if he does this. And why would that change him becoming a certain thing? I don't know. It was very, very convoluted. Time machine stories.
I do appreciate the fact that the Ancient One split him into two, because we get this sort of, like we're exploring a darker side of Doctor Strange, of how his obsession led him down this dark path and corrupted him. But at the same time, because of the split, we are also left with the heroic Doctor Strange. And we get to see, super fans of Doctor Strange don't have to just see their character be evil. They ultimately, even though he's unsuccessful, they get to see Doctor Strange try and be really heroic, which is make the decision to try and save his universe, his friends, over the fact that he is heartbroken. He's choosing to remain heartbroken for the rest of his life to try and, save his world and everything. And even though he fails in that, so I was glad that we at least got to see a heroic side of Doctor Strange, even in this darker take on him, which I thought that was a cool concept. I really liked the diving into the lore of the sorcerers and stuff like that, and him going back to that temple and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. That's the start of that is the one point where I will say that the writing was weak, when he was like saying hello, like right. Reading library knowledge. I was like, okay, here we go, here with the bad stuff again. But overall, especially when compared to the other episodes, and especially the last two episodes, the writing in this was light years ahead of where What If has been, and their willingness to go full darker, go full like Twilight Zone with this thing was appreciated. Yeah. If you go back and listen to our previous takes, like what is something else I wanted? More Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher. We got that in this episode. Mm-hmm. And that was a cool scene. Yeah, and you can't do that every time, but yeah, it was a great scene. That involvement was phenomenal. How he was absorbing all these other magical beings, and how it was like you could see it corrupting him and everything like that. Tremendous. Like, really enjoyed that. I do think, like, as much as I enjoyed that, it did hearken to there's a montage in like every episode of What If. It seems like, and that's, I think, the main criticism that I have overall from a show concept, and we've talked about this before, is the length. I think they need to lengthen it a little bit more, because there's always, by the very nature, so much preamble that they feel that they have to give you to set things up, that by the time we really get going, it's time to end the show.
Yeah, and they're speeding through, like you said, in these scenes of very cool aspects where, man, if they drew some of those out, it'd be even better. Like it just kind of draws you in a little bit more into the mythology and the lore of some of these characters, and I really wanted to see more of that, and like where these things are coming from, a little bit more description behind them. I mean, it just would have been fun. Yeah, absolutely. And it's another positive for this. It wasn't just taking scene for scene from the MCU movies. It wasn't just swapping a different character into a scene that we'd come to know and love and be like, hey, isn't this cool? They were telling their own story here. They were using the MCU established characters, and they were doing their own What If story. I think this episode absolutely delivered on what the promise of the show was supposed to be. It most closely approximated the What If comic series that people loved, and it delivered the promise of what this series was supposed to be. And I really appreciated for that. And I hope this serves to those of you that are critics of mine and deriders of how I approach things, newer things or things Marvel and stuff like that. I never go in wanting to dislike something. I try and go in with an open mind every time. I have my expectations appropriately managed based on the knowledge that I have going in. And I've disliked more than liked all of the previous episodes leading into this. Are you just saying you're hindered because you're smarter than everyone?
No.
Because you have more knowledge?
Not. First of all, I want to apologize to the fans. I'm not a condescending prick like that. Well, I mean, maybe. But anyway, I don't go into any of these things wanting to dislike them or hoping that they're bad so that I can. I don't like. Honestly, I prefer to like it all. It's just I'm going to call quality out where it wants quality, and lack of quality where there's lack of quality. This was a quality episode. I really enjoyed it, and that is my take on it after having suffered through the previous three, and still went into this with an open mind, willing to be entertained, and I wasn't perfect, and I think that there is room for improvement on this show concept, most notably the length, and continuing to do what this episode did, which is not be so married to wanting to just recreate scenes from the MCU movies. Even, and I really liked the Doctor Strange movie. Had too much comedy in it at times, and there was a lot of that stuff I didn't like. I will say that this show had a moment with the two capes when they were facing off with one another.
Yeah.
I actually liked that. I thought it was understated. And it was like, I think some people might have gotten a chuckle at that moment of the two capes facing off. I actually appreciated it as a not silly moment. And that's something that maybe they did better than if we had seen that play out in the MCU movie itself, because the cape became a little bit too much of a joke in the movie. So, yeah, they did a lot of things well. There wasn't an inundation of stupid, silly humor in this, too, which the previous episodes have had. Agent Coulson bringing Nick Fury his coffee and talking about, what he got and all that stuff. So there was none of that here.
It does make me worry that in future episodes that they aren't capable of making one of these episodes good unless it's darker. If they have to have like a good ending, like a possible like Peggy Carter still saves the day, all this stuff, and T'Challa's the best, and like they aren't capable of making a positive what if story without all the bullshit. And it's not like we only like dark stuff, like Batman isn't just good because it's dark, it's you don't make every movie dark to make it good. But it does worry me that they can't make a quality one yet on a positive light.
There is something to be said, though, that if we want to believe that the timeline that we're living in, as putting ourselves into the MCU proper timeline, what's wrong with that being the best timeline, the sacred timeline?
Right.
So, like, why wouldn't I have no issue if most of these what if stories end negatively?
Right.
And I think, as you just stated, if that's the crutch that they have to make entertaining, not silly, not preachy product, then go for it. Absolutely go for it.
It puts more weight behind what our characters and what our stories are too, because they mean that much more, and because it's keeping our timeline on the right track, whereas these other things end timelines, they end universes. And if these things aren't the way it is, that's how detrimental it can be to some of these characters.
Speaking of which, the ending of this episode was great. The whole universe collapsing around him and everything like that. Stuff with the Watcher. Yeah, it was sad. Like really great voice acting from Benedict there, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I just wish it was longer.
Yeah, I wanted more. I definitely wanted more. And to the individual who asked if I fell asleep during this one when my first watch, I did, but I'm just so tired, so I had to go back and watch it. It wasn't because I didn't like it. I'm just tired. I'm a tired individual.
You're a sleepy boy, Davis. I understand.
I can't watch these in bed anymore. I need to stay up and just sit up.
Yeah, I don't know. I was very pleasantly surprised by this episode, and I had seen like a lot of hype from my friends' timelines about how much they liked it and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, yeah, we'll see about that, because you like literally everything that Marvel puts out, so your word is really not worth much to me at this point. But I'll be damned. This is good. And a good step forward for what if. I hope they follow suit. I doubt it, because we still have that Party Thor episode to come.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. So now we'll see. Maybe I'm impressed again. Look,
they did tease zombies too, right?
Yes. So we still have the Marvel zombies, which probably will be good. And Party Thor. I assume Marvel Zombies will be the finale.
Yeah, it might even be hour long. They might even extend it for you. Kind of doubt it.
They should.
They should be a two-parter at least.
Yeah, I feel like overall, Just again, stretch it out a little bit so we could get a little bit more, walk around a little bit more in these alternate versions of these characters and stuff like that. But what if episode 4 easily the best thing that Disney Plus has put out Marvel related? Easily, not even close. Better than Black Widow, better than Loki or Loti or whatever you want to call it, better than Falcon and Winter Soldier, better than WandaVision. It's this episode. It's better. Standing by it.
I don't know if I can argue that.
See, look at that. Even Davis, who liked Kang and Loki, is on board here.
But that's how good this episode was, though, and how well they did it.
That's how bad everything else has been.
And how good the Time Machine movie is. So
there it is. There it is.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm out.
I mean, it really is. The beginning of this episode, very startling similarities to the Guy Pearce Time Machine movie. I will grant you that. Well, we're going to stop pondering the question, what if, and we're going to take one more break. On the other side, we will be talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings on the Best Damn Nerd Show.